Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, another one of our Trek logs. This is your Captain Goo with my number one, McKenna.
Hello.
And our special operative,
Yes.
Adriel, special ambassador. How's it going, Adriel?
It's going awesome. I feel like I get promoted every time we have a new Trek log. I was like an ensign for a while. For a while, I was just some sort of an alien on another planet that was dropping by for fun. So I feel like
You're
I'm getting promoted. It's pretty cool. So I'm doing well.
It was like we did the thing that like Wesley got when they're just like, yeah, you're just like in charge now. We'll talk about that in the episode, but maybe we'll put you in charge of a mission someday.
Sweet. I will do my best. I'll even do better than Wesley.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so we're back. It's been a not too long. We what do we do these like quarterly or something? It's always nice to revisit the world of Star Trek with all of you. We have this one is less of a story arc, and it's more of just like thematically connected episodes. And we're talking about the Prime Directive, sort of. The first episode is just kind of a weird one I threw in there. But I thought it would be a fun topic to explore because we asked you last time, Adriel. I don't know if you were totally familiar with the Prime Directive, and I don't think any of these episodes actually explained it like beforehand, like they usually do. So I don't know. But I wonder what you thought of like kind of just this theme and like this topic we were going for.
I had heard of the Prime Directive and I knew that it was, I really didn't know what it was. I thought I knew what it was vaguely, but when I figured out what it was, it did not ring any bells at all. So I was like, okay, I guess I had no idea what the Prime Directive was. It's I kind of liked the way that we watched the episodes that they were ordered in, because the first one, they do kind of like, they don't directly explain it or address it, which actually made it more fun to watch because I understood what it was and I could tell by the context clues. It was not like there were no plot holes. It wasn't missing from the episode, but I got to kind of like see it a little bit like from the inside out, which was pretty cool. As opposed to some of the other later episodes that we watched that were more explicit in explaining what it was. The Prime Directive is very cool. Why don't one of you explain what it is?
McKenna, why don't you?
So the Prime Directive is kind of how they handle new planetary societies, communities that, depending on whether or not they're close to achieving warp drive or like space travel where they might encounter other species, they generally avoid pre-warp societies making contact with them. And when they are close to warp drive, they kind of go and do some intel.
Yes.
To figure out how to approach things. So as they say in one of the episodes, they're not just encountering each other in space for the first time, not knowing who's necessarily knowing how to communicate.
Yes. And so in that process where they actually kind of begin to make contact with these civilizations is first contact, which we'll talk about at the very end. But yeah, Prime Directive, beyond, because there's the any pre-warp societies, there's the idea they're not going to interfere with them, but then also it sort of ties into, I think we've seen hints of it, but maybe we'll see even more of it with our Klingon episodes and some of the other societies. But there's also that aspect that's not explored much here, which is that they don't really like interfere with like the political affairs of like nations or whatever outside of the Federation, you know. So there's definitely this whole idea of like non-interference, and we'll see. I guess we'll see those types of things explored in each of the episodes, so we can kind of talk about what we think about it related to those episodes. But yeah, I think we did kind of skip over. There's like the Prime Directive. There's stuff that deals with that in the original series, and when they brought back The Next Generation, it was something they really wanted to focus on in a lot of episodes. In the first season, there are notably like at least 3 big episodes that deal with it.
And which season or which series is that?
In season 1 of The Next Generation, they brought it back.
Yeah,
like they definitely were like, yeah, that's something we want to really focus on. So I didn't include any of them though, because I didn't think they were great episodes. In fact, I don't know if you remember any of these. McKenna, there's Justice, where they go down to like a horny planet, and the way they keep the peace is they only have one punishment for any crime, which is death, but it's random where the crime will be enforced. Whoa. And Wesley accidentally wrecks some flowers, and they're like, well, we have to kill this kid. And so the Enterprise has to decide whether or not they want to like basically break the Prime Directive by just because they could easily just take Wesley, but they were like, well, what do we do? Crusher, are we going to kill your kid? That's one of the episodes. I don't know if you remember that one, McKenna.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's hard to forget the horny. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun, but it's not very good. It's not bad. There's also Angel 1, which is where they go to the planet where it's reverse sexism.
Oh, that's always a fun one.
Yeah, they're doing.
They've done that in more than one.
Yeah, there's reverse sexism where like these people who used to be part of Starfleet crash there, and now they've married and they want to live there, but they're second class citizens or whatever. And then there is a Symbiosis, which is the opioid crisis episode. Where there's like one planet, these 2 planets have like a symbiotic relationship, because like the one is like basically doing the opioid crisis to the other planet, and they have to choose whether or not to stop it, So very heavy-handed. Tasha Yar gives like a "don't do drugs" Wesley type dare speech in it.
Whoa, does Wesley try to do? You know what? Never mind. I was. I'm interested in Wesley having opioid problems, but
he's like, why do people do drugs?
Oh,
they have to. Like,
that was a good impression. I liked that a lot.
Thank you. Anyway, if you're interested, I would go check out any of them. I'm not gonna say like they're kind of fun, but they're definitely like on the cheesier, goofier end. That season 1. Where it kind of feels like TOS a little bit level cheese. So there's some fun to it, but I was like, no. Let's just get to, because I wanted to end on this, the one we end on, because I was like, let's get to some really good stuff, because what jumps out to me is some of the later ones. So I was like, you know what? But season 1 has a great episode about why it's good to have something like a Prime Directive. So let's, is it okay if we just get into our first episode?
Let's do it.
Hello, we are Kirby Conversations, a podcast on Kirby, along with other adjacent subjects like Smash Brothers, HAL Laboratory, and other related Nintendo games.
In each episode, we take an in-depth, well-researched look at a Kirby topic, drawing on our decades of experience playing Kirby games, creating Kirby-related content, and working in and around the video game industry. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a theater and video game journalist.
And my name's Bridget. I'm an online Kirby commentator and collector.
Our team also includes photographer and Nintendo ambassador Kai Captain Dangerous Parker, and Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Wick Kirby. Join us for deep dives into Kirby's history, interviews with industry professionals, and even inside looks at Nintendo, as together we explore all things Kirby and HAL Laboratory. You can find Kirby Conversations on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, so our first episode for today is Conspiracy.
On the next episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Don't trust anyone. Remember that, Jean-Luc.
Sabotage strikes the highest ranks of the Starfleet Command.
Breaking security. Emergency.
And threatens the future of the entire Federation.
What is that?
But do evil parasites hold the key to this deadly conspiracy?
You'll be one of us soon.
Find out on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Season 1, Episode 25, from May 9th, 1998. Teleplay by Tracy Torme, who worked on the first and second season of the show. Story by Robert Sabaroff, who wrote one episode of TOS and this one TNG ep. And it's directed by Cliff Bull, who we talked about before. He directed Best of Both Worlds, which was the episode and more. He's a major director, so it's cool to see him again. A big one from him. He's also where the Bolian race gets their name from, and we do. There is a Bolian in this episode that we'll talk about. So fun. Cliff Bull.
I love that they named it after him. That's so sick.
Yeah, it's very sweet. So. The Memory Alpha recap of this is: after Captain Picard receives a dark warning from an old friend, the Enterprise D returns to Earth to stop an alien invasion from taking over Starfleet Command. Dun dun dun.
Yeah. Seriously.
So this is it's called Conspiracy. It's literally like a political thriller type conspiracy episode. A very kind of distinct tone for Star Trek. Adriel, what was just overall, like, what was kind of your reaction to watching this?
This one felt really like not a Star Trek episode to me, because it was pretty like nasty and like, like in the past, like a lot of the trope is that Star Trek is like just a lot of like talking and discussions and like not like that's not a lot of action. But then there are plenty of episodes where there's lots of action, but even those, they seem to take it pretty like they're pretty serious about like the consequences of these things, and kind of the morality of violence and of conflict and all of that is something that they seem to grapple with a lot, at least in the ones I've seen. And then this one, I mean, they weren't like joking about it, but this one had some crazy claymation. It had some crazy body horror stuff going on.
Yes.
It was kind of a creature feature. It felt more like an X-Files or like a Monster of the Week type of an episode, which I haven't seen a ton of, maybe because you're picking more of the story arc ones for my curriculum. But I liked this one. This one felt like a big surprise to me. I was like gasping and like covering my eyes at parts of it, not because it was so gross, but because I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe how scandalous for Star Trek to have like this dude's nasty exploded self all over the place.
It was scandalous. In fact, this episode had stuff cut from it when it aired in the UK, and also had a warning put before it in Canada. So this was a boundary pushing episode.
Yeah.
McKenna, what do you think about this one?
I like this one a lot. We just watched The Thing this past weekend, and it reminds me of that in a lot of ways. Just like you don't know who you can trust, who's been taken over, or what's going on. You kind of got to go and play it safe and hope you're not putting yourself in danger.
Yeah. I think part of the reason they got away with this sort of tone was by making it that they were being infested by like an alien race, because it kind of lets, and in fact, I think that was a note from Gene Roddenberry. I think it originally, so I believe the script originally was the premise initially, and it changed a lot, was based on the Iran-Contra affair.
Whoa.
But Yeah, it definitely got revised and stuff and changed. And I think one thing, like Gene Roddenberry didn't really like portraying Starfleet in like that dark of a manner. So I think that's where you end up getting like, well, it's sort of an outside invader, because then it's like, well, you could still think like, well, maybe all people at Starfleet are still trustworthy.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know, like contradiction they had to overcome, but yeah.
It's very much like it had like alien, capital A alien vibes, because it's it's a literal creature, a little bug thing that crawls into your mouth, I guess. And then they had this absolutely gnarly diagram, like an X-ray that I loved, which was, it showed a profile of a human skull, and then like the spine, and then coming out of the back of the neck is like the tail of the bug, but the bug is like latched on like a face hugger to the cervical spine, like right underneath the skull, which is just so crazy because it like doesn't, how would it get there from the mouth? But who cares? It doesn't matter. But it had big alien like the franchise vibes, which I really appreciated, because I love Alien a lot. And it was, without being as like disturbing as that, but it still is like a pretty like it's doing the same thing, just sort of a TV approved version.
That had to appeal to you. It's a little bit. Oh
yeah, definitely.
A little bit alien as well, for sure. So we'll talk about some of the sort of plot elements, because I like to shout out one of my favorite things about Star Trek is that oftentimes, you'll obviously get your episodes that are about your characters or whatever, but a lot of these are great, these one-off ones, because they're great because it's like, let's get some characters in here and kind of explore them. Yeah. There's maybe not much character stuff with this because they're all kind of being infected, but there's a lot of fun actors and things like that. So I want to shout them out. So they kind of get this alert in this episode. They have to like secretly divert this mission. It's super moody because he's getting like some secret thing that he's got to go meet up with some other captains. And so they go down to and they talk to what I like to call the Moody Planet crew. They go down to this red planet. It looks amazing.
It is. Yeah. It is really moody. It feels. Yeah. It's like a club, like an underground club or something.
The music is very cool vibe as well. The tone is awesome in this episode. But so they go down there and they meet some different captains of different ships. You got Jonathan Farwell as Walter Keel. I want to say for a lot of people, I like to shout out stuff they might be from, but a lot of people in this, there's just a lot of people who are just in a ton. If you look up their like work, it's like they're all in Dallas, they're all in this and that. Like they were just like on TV at the time. So nice. Probably a lot of people who like this guy who might fall by our memory wayside, but like definitely you'll find a lot, Cool. So you had him, but then there's like we've got Michael Berryman as Captain Rix, who's the Bolian. He's also in Star Trek 4, and of course he's one of the most iconic like character actors, especially in a lot of horror and sci-fi over the years. He's in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Of course, The Hills Have Eyes, X-Files. He's in the Double Dragon movie for virtual theater fans.
Oh, sweet.
And Spy Hard, he's in as well. But he's a great guy. He's always playing aliens and monsters because he has, like a skin condition or whatever. But he's just such a memorable looking guy, Yeah. Like he's one of the greats, I think.
Hell yeah.
And the Bolian makeup on him looks sick. And then you've got also Ursula Bryant as Captain Tryla Scott, who you only get a little bit from, but she had a good vibe.
Doesn't she come in later at the end of the episode as well?
Yes, because the Captain Keel here is telling him like, hey, you can't trust anybody. There's something going on. okay, let's get out of here. But then they all die, and it's revealed later that Captain Scott was already infected at the time, so she was already in on it. So yeah, good stuff. They kind of put them on the quest to look into this, and Data, looks into it or whatever, and then they go back to Earth and they make contact with two characters who were previously in an episode in season 1 called Coming of Age, which you have not seen, Adriel, but I assume that didn't trip you up too much.
No,
I didn't even tell.
It didn't matter.
There's only like one line where they're like, he seems different from the last time we talked to him.
That is true, but I thought that was just part of the thing. They're like, he seems a little different, which is a hint to what's going on.
That's just an episode where they're like, these two guys come on board, and they're like, especially Robert Schenken as Dexter Remick, who is apparently a playwright and a Pulitzer and Tony Award winner. So shout out to this guy.
Hell yeah.
But this Remick guy, he comes on board with Gregory Quinn, who's played by Ward Costello, and they're like, we're doing an audit of you or something, and he's a massive asshole, and it's like, what's going on? And then at their end, they're like, we're actually doing it because we wanted to see if you wanted a promotion, Riker. And he's like, nah. And that's basically the episode. And also that's also the episode where Wesley meets the other vape alien.
Shout out to vape aliens.
Anyway, you weren't missing much, but those guys show back up and they're like, yeah, everything's cool down here at Starfleet. Come meet the Starfleet dudes who are played by... Yeah, come meet us
and have dinner. Nothing suspicious at all.
I just have Ray Reinhardt, who's in one Voyager episode, and Henry Darrow as Savar, the Vulcan dude, who's also in one Voyager ep. I was going to tell you what it was, because it was definitely something you'd have been like, oh, fuck, but I can't remember now. But anyway, yeah, come have dinner, come eat bugs with us. And they go down there, and it's, again, a bit of like that tense, like, oh, who can we trust type thing. They have to pull a little stunt with Riker on him, where he's got to act infected. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Adriel, what'd you think about the going to Starfleet? I don't think you've ever really seen hanging around there necessarily. I mean, it's maybe not as exciting, but
other than in the like in the movie, they go down in one of the movies. They're like there a lot, I think, or they're at least there. They start out there. Mm-hmm. I liked the like B-roll of like the planet, like outside of, like the outside of the like landing area and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. I will say that I was not expecting it to be bugs until it happened. I was like, wait a minute, like, because they easily could have written it so that it was some sort of, I mean, it could have been anything, right? Some psychic thing. It could be like once you witness something, then you're different. It could have been anything, but instead they made it like alien ass claymation Pee Wee Herman ass bugs, and I really appreciated that because I love that kind of stuff. But I was really surprised when that's what it was. But it got really gnarly really fast, and I like that they had Riker come down and pretend that he was infected. Because he fooled me. He fooled me and he fooled Picard. So, yeah, he did. Yeah, I thought it was great. It was a great twist.
Shout out to Frakes.
Yeah.
For sure. What'd you think about Starfleet, McKenna?
It was fine. Not the most exciting Starfleet display, I think.
And they're like this whole air part.
It just looks like they're still kind of on a ship.
Yeah, the budget's quite sparse here for sure. So yeah, it's definitely not crazy. But this whole, like, I mean, I think still even having seen it and kind of knowing, like, this part I think still holds up though as like a, tense moment and stuff.
Yeah. And like the viewer doesn't know if Riker is normal or not until he reveals himself, which is that I really like that. So yeah, you're kind of concerned for Picard for a second.
They also have like there's a part where he's like because they serve them all bugs, as you said, like mealworms or whatever. There's a part where he like reaches, because I was very aware of like when are these fake bugs and when are these real bugs, like as props, because sometimes they were eating them and then sometimes they were just moving around and they were real bugs, you know? So I was like trying really, they did a really good job because it was hard to tell which was which, you know? And there's the part where Riker reaches in and he reaches into the like real bugs and pulls them out in his hand and like puts it up to his mouth. And I was like, oh, he's not going to eat the bugs, like the actor too, you know? And then there's like the moment where he like almost like looks at the camera and he's like, aha, I gotcha.
I'm not going to eat the bugs.
I'm not going to eat these bugs. I love that part.
The scene too where they leave it on where like, did he get infected or not is pretty good too. Like the whole scene with Quinn up on the Enterprise where he fights Worf.
Oh my god.
One of the funniest scenes.
There's like you can tell when they do like the farther out shots that it's just a totally different person.
Yes.
Just like a younger guy with a wig or something.
Yes. Oh, clearly. I mean, Star Trek, it's funny, Star Trek always is like, even when they have the highest budgets on TNG, like it always has that goofy staginess to it, but season 1 particularly, it's really fun the way it does. Everything does feel like we're still in the 60s a little bit, you know, at times. So it has some of the cheesiness of the 60s and like the late 80s too, like at the same time, which is like a fun combo of two different generations.
Yeah, I did like seeing the fight between the old man. What was his name?
Quinn, I think. Admiral Quinn. Yeah.
Yeah. It was and it went on for like a long time. You know, they like could have done one punch and been like, okay, you know, we get the idea that this guy's like dangerous and he knocked him out or whatever, but it goes on for like a while and he fights Riker and then he fights Worf. It's like goes on and on. I liked it a lot.
And so then it ends like with that big, we kind of talked about it already, but there's this big nasty bug puppet, right? That's like I guess presumably like the queen or something coming out of Remick or whatever, coming out of his body. It's just so nasty. And I love that just both Picard and Riker are like, we're just going to blow this up.
Yeah.
We're just going to kill this thing.
That was sweet because they're always kind of hand wringing, not in a bad way. It's the best thing about Star Trek. But this time they just were like, nah, we got to get rid of this now.
And they're like, yeah, no talking. We're not going to work it out. We're just going to kill this fucker.
They were like, if one of these guys gets out, we're all screwed.
We're all toast. Yeah. So yeah, nasty thing that got censored. Pretty fun to see in Star Trek for sure.
Yeah. I had a question I did have a plot question because so the guy who was infected by the Queen, who gets annihilated at the end, and like turned inside out and melted or whatever. Was he in other episodes as well? Was this supposed to be a character that we were like, oh, we know this guy? He was the one who was kind of going hard on Riker and everyone in that episode. Like in a different episode? Yeah. Oh. So did you feel he was kind of an asshole, it sounds like. So you didn't really feel bad for him when he died?
Well, no, because he actually has a similar ending to how what's his name did in the Data trial episode, where at the they kind of reveal at the end, he's like, we're kind of testing you, Riker, to see if you're ready or whatever to you know, we're just like kind of pushing you, or I think that's how it goes. And then at the end he is like, I can't even remember, he has one of those lines where he's like, you know, I'd love to work with you someday, or you know, and you're like, I see. Where it's like at the end of the day, this is, I feel like, kind of a Star Trek thing. It's like, you know what, at the end of the day, we're all in Starfleet. We all believe in the same cause, right, and we all
doing
share
our jobs,
bond, you know? Yeah. So I didn't. It's sad that he's dead. I don't really care.
Right.
It was awesome, but yeah. It would be in another Star Trek episode if this happened it would be like they would like mourn the loss of
Right.
this guy or whatever.
Right.
You know,
I
but
was
we'd
sort
have
of
time for
surprised that they didn't at all, because they normally have
Yeah.
such high regard for human life or life at all. So
Yeah, there's nothing like fully. It's definitely stands out. I don't think it's like out of the bounds of like how they normally treat morality and such like that, not out of their like moral view, but it definitely is a little odd, in tone for sure. But it makes it one of the most. I think it's one of the most standout episodes of the series, and early on in season 1, like, I mean that also explains it. Like I feel like the show gets a little bit more cohesive and tone as it goes on, but I think it's kind of one of the coolest episodes of TNG.
Yeah, it was sick. I loved this episode. I mean, the spoiler, I really liked all of the episodes that we picked for today, but this one was super, super fun.
It does end with a cliffhanger, which I kind of told you don't get too invested in that because it goes nowhere. I think they did initially conceptualize the Borg as like an insect type race. And I think maybe this was like a tease of that.
This does feel like a kind of prototype.
They do
like
tease.
They feel like superior and they want to take over.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
They do tease the Borg in the first season at the end. Ever so slightly in an episode we're going to talk about next time. But I think by that point they had come up with a better idea of what they wanted them to be. I think, and that's just kind of the interesting part about Star Trek, how like this episode that was like maybe an Iran-Contra affair evolved into a bug conspiracy. So, all right. That's conspiracy. Why don't we switch gears and talk about an episode that I had not seen in a long time, and I don't think you had ever seen it, McKenna.
No.
Pen Pals.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Captain, permission to beam down to Drama 4.
Data struggles to rescue an alien friend from a dying planet,
You cannot survive in this.
while the crew conducts a dangerous experiment to stop its destruction.
Data, you've got 10 minutes. That's it.
Firing torpedoes.
Can they save the doomed planet before it's too late?
What are we going to do?
Find out on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Season 2, episode 15 from May 1st, 1989. Teleplay by Melinda Snodgrass, who we talked about before. She wrote Measure of a Man. Story by Hannah Lewis Shearer, who did a few TNG episodes and 1 Deep Space Nine episodes, and directed by Winrick Colby. He's one of the great Star Trek directors. He's done 16 TNG episodes, including the finale, 13 Deep Space Nine episodes. I have in here in the notes, McKenna, which is that if I think if it's like if I told you what they were, you'd be like, oh fuck. 18 Voyager episodes, including the pilot, as well as Enterprise he worked on. So, just someone who's done a lot for Trek for sure. And the summary from Memory Alpha is: Data makes contact with a young girl from a pre-warp civilization on a planet facing imminent annihilation. The Enterprise must wrestle with the moral dilemma of violating the Prime Directive or standing by while Data's friend dies. McKenna, I'll start with you first, since I don't think you've ever seen this episode, because it never was a standout one for me necessarily. So I think when we first went through, I was like, yeah, we can skip this one. I don't quite remember it. But what did you think about watching it for the first time?
It was definitely interesting. You get to see this is kind of this is a Data episode to me.
Totally.
It is.
Like Wesley has a thing going on that is related, but it's a little goofy with Wesley's part.
I would say it's one of the cases. Sometimes Star Trek do A plot, B plot, and it's great. That's all the story needs. But this is one where I feel like sometimes you watch an episode and you're like, I don't know if they needed that B plot, and I think they could have dedicated more to the A plot.
Yeah, I did think it detracted a little. Like you could have come up with a solution without putting so much focus on that. Volcano planet is an interesting place to live.
Yeah, just the outdoor area.
I'm like, how
cool.
did this civilization do this work? Did they just not have like really active, like were their volcanoes just chilling for a really long time? But
yeah, how do they deal with that?
But yeah, it's like they're using the radio, which is not like, I guess, well, to Starfleet it is kind of an ancient thing at this point.
Yes. Yep, the cutoff, yeah, as we said, for when they really will interact with species when they can go faster than light or whatever. So they're like, yeah, it's no go.
Yeah, radio is child's play.
Yeah, should we say like sort of set up the real, I guess the thing here? Well, I guess we already said it in the intro, but yeah, they're like, it's whether or not should we help this planet that's going to get wiped out by those volcanoes.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a common like prime directive. Like, this species is going to die out without us.
Is it right or wrong
should
to
we
interfere?
Help?
And that has happened. It doesn't often happen, because I think often when they're presented with that situation, they try to find a way around it. But there have been a few episodes where it is like, all right, now we're just going to let them die, and now that's too bad. But usually, if it's featured, it doesn't go down like that. Adriel, what do you think about this concept of not interfering with if we were out there in space? What would you say?
I mean, it's a weird. This one. So there's 3 Prime Directive episodes that we're about to talk about, and this one felt like the most. I felt the most like morally gray about this one, because on one hand it feels like very, it feels like it can't hurt anything to try to help these people, to try to help them stay alive, and it doesn't feel like a moral quandary to do that, and so it feels like Starfleet having a hands-off approach feels a little bit odd. But I do understand that, like, in this episode, they were able to kind of wash their hands of it, because it was kind of like maybe nobody knew that they were ever there. You know, that's kind of how the episode ends. And so they're able to like kind of neatly wrap it up with a bow and be like, okay, no one ever knew we were there. No big deal. That was kind of like it was a close shave, but we got out of there and we saved them. But I don't know. I mean, if that's the case all the time, then sure. Yeah, you would want to do that. But oftentimes, as we see in other episodes, like, it doesn't go down that way. Like, you might not save them all. You might save some of them. They might know who you are. It might like get really messy. So if that's the calculation that they're making, then I understand. But I thought it was a bit odd that they were just like, I don't know, should we save them or should we not? Because it felt like, I was like, man, it seems like you guys should just get in there and try to help if they're all going to die anyway. Like, what's worse, them all being wiped out or them knowing about aliens, you know? So I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I would think that if it was either total annihilation or learn about aliens, I would say probably option B. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
You can definitely appreciate. Well, you can appreciate where, like the idea from it comes from, of like not wanting to create all the issues, like you mentioned, like we see in some of the later ones, or it could even be a case sometimes where it's, you know, there's even some the TOS episode, I can think of one where they're like having a dispute with some Klingons that are messing with the planet. They're interfering with the planet already, and so they're sort of like this idea of like, well, what about like people who are skirting around that, or like if you do this, does this serve you in a wider political way in the galaxy or stuff like that?
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
like I can appreciate where that comes from, because like ideally, you know, it's something you wouldn't do. You know what I mean? But because it could lead to, even if you start to do things, there's that idea of like you can start to do stuff like that and justify it because you're doing good, but it's really your own personal gain, you know, over a competitor or an enemy or something like that. You know?
And also you just don't know, right? Like you don't know what's going to happen in, you know, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever, right? So like if you leave traces of your own involvement, either in the historical memory or the cultural memory of these societies, or just in like, you know, like physical objects or whatever, like you don't know how that's going to affect the whole rest of the universe.
You don't even know, like you think about stuff like if you have diseases that they're not immune, like that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
Like, you probably have to be careful with just even coming near the people and stuff like that. I'm sure that's something you'd like to think Starfleet look into. So I appreciate having that there, because it's sort of like trying to create this barrier. But I think that's kind of what works about Star Trek, is like Starfleet even has its own stated ideals. But what Star Trek often shows is like, well, we can't always just follow that to a T. You have to understand, like, when your government or whatever, when your government's laws could actually harm people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was sort of surprised that they didn't. I mean, this kind of goes back to what McKenna was saying about the A plot and the B plot. But I was sort of surprised that they didn't like even talk more about it. So there's the scene where they're debating, where everybody finds out that Data has like been in touch with this person on this other planet, and they need help. And then there's like, you know, all the crew is in the room like debating like what should we do and why, and they all have slightly different like interpretations of the situation. But it's pretty fast. Like that scene lasts like a few minutes, and then they come to the conclusion like we're not going to help them. And then they decide, okay, we actually should, because she sounds so pathetic when Data calls her on the phone or whatever. When Data gets her on the horn, she's like, "Help me, Data, I'm so scared." And then they're like, "Damn it, we got to go help this kid." But I'm surprised that they didn't. I just think there was a lot more room for some creative writing or character development, or just showcasing the different characters, like fears or interpretations. Like they did that a little bit with the hot doctor. What's her name?
Crusher?
No.
Pulaski.
Oh, Pulaski. It's season 2. Right.
And she's like, we have to help them, like whatever. Like she was sort of a standout character, but the rest of them, I didn't really get a sense of what their feelings were. And so I think that, for example, they could have cut some of the weird Wesley B plot and put some into there. So all of that's to say is that it's a complicated issue that they're handling, but I think we could have seen a little bit more of like how the individual characters were thinking about it, just even in that one scene, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good example too, though, of like kind of her character versus others, because she's always like known as being more outspoken, you know what I mean? So I feel like it kind of works on the level of like yeah, Geordi might just be like kind of a guy who will go along for it if it's something kind of within the bounds of like Starfleet regulation.
Yeah.
Whereas like Pulaski seems like someone who's more to be like, this is BS. You know what I mean?
I love Pulaski, even though I forgot her name, but I do love her very much.
She's the best.
She's awesome.
What do you think, McKenna? I want to make it clear, like, because I was speaking poorly too. Like, I feel like it's important to recognize that, because we see it often in Star Trek where like sometimes Starfleet, and this is especially later on, they'll kind of push the boundaries of these rules and stuff, and you'll see Picard have to kind of like stand up to them. So I think it's this idea about like using the ideals we believe in to keep our government in check from like overstepping its bounds and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
But what do you think, McKenna? Like, what about the prime directive in this case.
So I think this is the episode. I think someone says something about like, what if this is like this planet's fate, or like it's destined for it to die out, which kind of struck me because I was like, this is kind of getting into a more religious thing, which is, I see as like separate from Starfleet. Like that's not something that they would base a decision on,
right?
And I was like, who's to say that they're fated or not? Like, how can you scientifically decide that? And I guess another thing is like Pulaski is kind of the one, sticking up for this planet. I think maybe the doctors more often are.
Yeah.
It makes sense because they have the whole oath to do no harm.
Right.
That's a big aspect in that episode, Symbiosis, I mentioned, where Crusher is like, she figures out like that these people are like addicted to these drugs, and she takes big issue, and Picard has to actually, it's kind of weird. I think it's more, they haven't fully figured out his character, but he kind of tells her like, no, this is actually the right thing to do to like let him do this stuff. So, but I mean, I guess that's true to like, this happens throughout all these episodes where the show's off kind of like, remember when Data created Lal, and this episode Data, it shows kind of the innocence of Data. He talks to this girl, and when Picard finds out about it, he's like kind of pissed at first, or even in the next episode where it's like someone's life was on the line, he's like, you should have let him die. So I guess that is in keeping with his character a little bit, but even he can be, I think, kind of swayed by these things to like find the right solution, which I think is cool, Yeah. Maybe there's evolution in his character a little bit too.
Right. I mean, he also, there's a little bit of, it's like, you kind of have to dig to like find it, or kind of like feel around to find the end of the thread here. But like in the B plot with Wesley, who is like struggling to lead this team, there's a scene with Riker and Wesley, and he's like, like, how would Picard do it? And like, why is it that nobody questions when Picard has like, or why is it that everyone trusts him? Or like, we all do what he says. And Riker's like, well, why do you think that is? And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you should figure that out, because that will make you a better leader. And I do think that like that like scene stuck with me, but not particularly in this episode. Like I thought about that as the episodes moved on. Like I was like, yeah, like what is it? Is it because he's always right? Like, no. Is it because he listens to everyone? Yes. Is it because he has conviction, but he's sort of like able to see both sides? I mean, there's lots of different things about Picard that make him a really dynamic and like powerful character.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that at most like that conversation holds up. It's a good question to be asking yourself, like when you watch the other episodes as well. But yeah, because he ends up deciding to do it in this one. Yeah.
There's like such a good Picard moment in like an episode we didn't watch that I want to tell you about that like explains this all. So you know what I'm talking about?
McKenna.
Can I give you this moment? Because I feel like it perfectly explains it.
You should do it. You should say
okay. We'll watch it eventually, and I don't think it'll spoil it, but there's an episode where him and Beverly get like the psychic link. They get stuck on a planet with a psychic link, and they can like hear each other's thoughts basically. And they're stranded, and they're like, what do we do now? And Picard's like, it's this way we need to go. And she's like, you don't know where you're going, do you? And he's like, no. And he's like, but like part of the job is just like making people feel like I know what I'm doing.
Whoa.
Yeah. He says it so much better. Like Patrick Stewart obviously delivers it in a way that like it's like a damn, but like that is totally like something that I feel like I feel like you can see him like doing in every episode he's in, just trying to give off the like utmost like confidence, I mean, at least to other people. And then you see him like let his guard down more with like Troy or whatever. Privately, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Plus, like, I don't have a great memory about these episodes. Like a few minutes ago, when you're talking about the Borg, I was like, the Borg.
Who are they?
The Borg again? I got it. I figured it out. But I'm just saying, I won't remember that.
Okay. I guess shout out to, if we're talking data plot, so shout out to Nikki Cox, who played Sarjenka.
Sarjenka was weird
Russian.
as hell.
Yeah, weird little girl. I was like looking at her career, kind of interesting. She has like in a bunch of different sitcoms and stuff in like the 80s and 90s.
Huh.
She was girl number 2 in Terminator 2.
Nice.
But yeah, she had like a sitcom like named after her, like it was like Nikki's show or something. And then she also played Norm Macdonald's daughter on like there's a Norm Macdonald sitcom.
Interesting.
That she was on. So I don't know, just like a interesting, like, you know, another one of those people that's like maybe not in our lexicon now of like celebrities and TV stars, but it's fun to like kind of go back and see those people. So shout out to her. Definitely a weird, cool alien design.
Yeah,
I gotta say.
I'll let you go through through the different actors for sure, but I did want to say something about Sarjenka. Which is that I like didn't trust her at all. I feel like sometimes in these Star Trek episodes, I have like a really strong feeling about a character, and then it turns out
She's
to like
got bad
not
vibes.
be. Yeah, like I was like, I don't like this kid. I think there's something not good. Like something bad's gonna happen, and it's going to be her fault, either intentionally or unintentionally. And it didn't. Everything was fine, but she was just like really attached to Data in a way that I found toxic, and I was scared. And I didn't like her hands. So there's that.
Data's good with kids. Like that happens a lot. Is he like befriends kids? Because I feel like he has that sort of like childlike innocence. You know?
For sure. For sure. But anyway, she was a weirdo, but she turned out to be okay. No big deal. I had my get my hackles up for no reason. Sarjenka's cool.
The way they kind of reveal everything is cool. Like, I think the way you talk about the story, there's times where it's like maybe too fast, but I do like how they kind of like the way they unfold it is sort of like already in the moment, you know, like Data's already been contacted with her and like it has a cool vibe, especially because it's like Picard finds out on the holodeck when he's like doing horseback riding.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you thought about this, but this is actually, fun fact, this is the only location shot in the second season. So, and we always love that. You know what I say whenever they're doing location shots, as they're outside.
Like they're out. Yeah, you love when they're outside.
I love when they're actually, I just remember like, my dad watching like an episode of Voyager once when I was a little kid, and like, I didn't really watch the show, but I always used to think of Star Trek as like, yeah, they're like out on space or in these little space ships or whatever. And I just remember seeing an episode where they were like in a forest or something. And I was like, whoa, this looks so real. I was like eight, you know? But there's always just like a different vibe to that when they actually are like outside somewhere.
It is. It is. I had that exact thought, not that thought, but I was like, oh my God, they're inside. Like they're inside all the time. I had that thought. So yeah.
Picard gets so serious too, you know? He's like, we broke the Prime Directive, you know? And you're like, fuck, this is so serious.
Yeah, dude.
I react like that to a lot of Star Trek, I guess.
He looked cool getting on that horse. I was like, dang, Patrick Stewart.
I think we got Melinda Snodgrass to thank for the horse. I think she like is into horse.
She's a horse girl.
She's a horse girl, yeah. I think I once looked her up on like, I think I found her like Facebook page or something back in the day when I was like researching, you know, I'm always like, who wrote these? What, like, are they on Twitter or something? I think I found her on like Facebook or something, and the picture was her riding a horse. So I was like, she must be into horses. Yeah.
McKenna, are you a horse girl? Or were you a horse girl?
Yeah,
she's not,
I was definitely a horse girl.
She's so, yeah.
I just, you know, you got to ask. It's a type, you know. I was not, but a lot of my friends were. Everybody's a little bit of a horse girl, you know.
Yeah, I still I still get excited when I see horses and like.
I love it.
Yeah, we'll be like driving out somewhere, because we're a few minutes from the middle of farmland. I'll always be like, horse.
It's probably the number
you do that
one.
too, though.
Yeah, you get more excited about the horses than any type of animal we come across, more than cows or, if you had to
we
rank
see
them.
a lot more cows.
That's fair.
Yeah, but the cows don't get old. All right, Wesley plot. He's got to lead this team. Again, some of the people we don't even see, like, who are on this team, so it's not that big of a deal. But you had Nicholas Cascone as Ensign Davies, who's also in one episode of Deep Space Nine, and he's in Titanic.
What?
He's part of the He's part of the submarine crew in the beginning of Titanic.
Hell yeah!
Like one of the guys.
That's the
but
guy
I thought,
who kind of is like trying to tell Wesley what to do.
Yeah, and I thought he was going to be like more of an issue.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be more tension.
And then when Wesley comes back, he's just like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I guess Wesley figured this thing out.
That was easy. Yeah, I had to sit there. I was like, oh, well, I guess no problem. No problem.
I ended up kind of liking it because I liked it. Again, it was like that idea of like, hey, we're Starfleet. We'll work together. Like, Wesley didn't really have any actual issue. He just needed self-confidence.
Right. Right.
And honestly, for Wesley stories, I kind of like low-stakes Wesley stories. You haven't seen some of the high-stakes ones as much. And this is the type of story a teenage boy should be having. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And not being like the one who can save us all, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, that was a good way for it to go, because that's how a Starfleet officer should react to that if they're being told, like, oh, this person is in charge. Like, that's just how they should.
They would be kind of right, though, to be like, why is this kid, like, in charge? Like, he's
totally.
Just like, it doesn't make sense, really. But whatever.
Right.
Yeah, like, we'll take them on their word that Wesley just deserves to be there for some reason.
Guess so.
You could just be a kid and they can be like, you're an honorary ensign. Okay, anyway. We also Anne H. Gillespie as Ensign Hildebrandt. She had a small recurring role on Deep Space Nine as a doctor, I think. I can't remember. She also played Jackie Taylor on Beverly Hills 90210.
Whoa.
Yeah, so shout out to her. And she was again, these characters are very minor. Whitney Ridebeck as Ensign Allens, and then there was someone else on the team who I don't even think we see. Maybe we see their face, but they're not credited. So, that was the team. I don't really have much else to actually say about that storyline, but it's fine for what it is. But I feel like the episode could have been better without it.
Yeah, I agree.
Should we get to some? Let's get to some good shit.
Enough about Sarjenka and Wesley.
Right.
I will say, right. I thought that Wesley, again, similar with Sarjenka, I didn't have a bad vibe with Wesley, but he seemed.
You didn't trust him.
I trusted him, but I did not trust that he was gonna. I thought something bad would happen again, like something more consequential and like bad would happen in his storyline. Like, I thought
You'd have to learn a real lesson.
Right. I thought he was going to make a mistake and that he would have to be like, that was my mistake. I own up to that. I'm the leader. You guys followed me. I told you to do something wrong. And now that's what happened. That's kind of where I thought it was going to go. Yeah. It didn't, that's not how it played out. But, so yeah, not like a bad vibe, but with that and the Sarjenka thing, I was like, something bad has to happen here. And nothing really did, which, was okay, actually.
Yeah. You also made me think when Riker comes to talk to him, he does the Riker sit.
Yes,
we always like to see the way he's...
Love the Riker sit.
It's also the first episode where Picard orders his iconic drink.
Earl Grey.
Hot.
Thank you.
Does he do that more than once?
Oh yeah, that becomes like his go-to order. Like, it was tea, Earl Grey, hot. That's like one of his, and that becomes a thing where they're like, okay, what's like, nowadays it's always like, what's the captain's drink gonna be, and what's their catchphrase gonna be? You know, and it's like, oh my god, come on.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.
Anyway, let's move on. I took a stab at that episode, and I think it paid off. It was not too bad, but let's talk about this was like one of the first episodes that I really got hooked into Star Trek with. We'll talk about who watches the Watchers.
On the next episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, a tragic accident exposes the crew to a savage alien race.
Crushed Enterprise. Medical emergency.
Riker leads a secret mission to save a dying team member.
Riker, stop! We will keep Troy captive.
But Picard must sacrifice his life for Troy.
He will kill me.
Father, no!
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
From Season 3, Episode 4, October 16th, 1989. Written by Richard Manning and Hans Beimler. We talked about them before. They're co-producers on Season 3, and they also wrote the episode Emissary, were with Kalar. And it's directed by Robert Weimer, who did a handful of TNG and one Deep Space Nine episode. And the Memory Alpha summary is: the Enterprise must undo the damage when a primitive civilization discovers a Federation observation team and concludes that Starfleet personnel are gods.
Yeah, this episode ruled, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, cool. McKenna, we're all in agreement here?
Yeah.
Okay. Overall thoughts. What do you think generally about this one, Adriel, other than it ruled?
Whipped ass. This one was like, it had all of the separate characters I thought were like really, really great in this primitives, or not, they weren't even primitive. It was kind of like, you know, like maybe they were like,
they're medieval
sort of society kind of a little bit. It gave me Krull vibes a little bit, that movie that we watched.
Okay.
It's like kind of fantasy ish, you know, whatever. But
yes, I texted you and I said it was a planet full of A Link to the Past NPCs.
Dude, yes, I forgot about that until just now.
This was a planet. They're proto-Vulcans, they say. So they kind of look Vulcan-y, but they were Hylians, if you ask me.
Oh my god, yeah. But they did have kind of that. They had like that crazy forehead thing going on.
They had the crazy forehead for sure.
Yeah, which was a less Hylian, but they did have the Hylian vibe. They had their little bows and whatever they had, you know,
just their little tunics and you know,
their
like
twine.
Their twine.
They were so cute. I really liked them a lot. I liked what they were doing. I liked that they felt like they're really trying their best to like figure out what's going on with this like crazy thing, and they end up like doing a pretty good job with it. And I really liked these proto Vulcans. And I just loved every time. So they think that, specifically Picard, I love that they think he's God and they call him the Picard.
Yes.
I just loved every time he's like, we angered the Picard.
Yeah.
It's just like so good.
So we should shout out the actors, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I'll do it. Well, we'll talk about, so they go down this planet where they're observing these medieval Vulcans, and one of Starfleet's like watching posts malfunctioned, and it kind of it's normally like obscured, and but it becomes kind of visible, and some of the guys are like injured and they get taken in by these medieval Vulcans. We don't really need to talk about the scientists. There's some scientists, they're all right characters, but the people who find them are some of these proto-Vulcans, the Mintakans, that's their name.
Mintakans, yeah.
Liko and Oji are the father and daughter who find them. played by Ray Weiss and Pamela Segal, who are both awesome in this episode. McKenna, we just watched a whole bunch of Ray Weiss acting.
Yeah, we watched Twin Peaks.
We watched Twin Peaks, in which he plays Leland Palmer, the father of Laura Palmer.
Oh, wow. I did not recognize him at all. But of course it's him. Now that you say it, it's obviously him. I love that. Okay, cool.
This came out the year before, 2 years before Twin Peaks. So I said when we watched it, like, he's casted perfectly because, like, in both, he's like, in this one, his wife is dead, not his daughter. But in both, you know, we see him like racked with grief and like this so like heightened performance, you know, that he's giving. And he always was so like when we started watching Twin Peaks. Like, I knew him from this episode, and he is someone who sticks out in my mind still from this episode. So to actually see him do something even more incredible in Twin Peaks is like, whoa. Yeah, we love
badass.
But also, let's give a shout out to Pamela Segal, who has been in a bunch of stuff, but most notably voices Bobby Hill on King of the Hill.
Nuh-uh. Yeah, that's Bobby Hill. I watch a lot of King of the Hill. I love King of the Hill.
You can hear it in her voice if you watch it back.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this episode and think about what's his name, Richard Palmer. What's that his name?
Leland.
I don't know. I was like, it's not Arnold. It's not Arnold. But Richard Palmer and Bobby Hill. Oh my God, what iconic characters. Okay, this is slaps. I love this.
So they find them, and Lico, he becomes like injured, and they heal him and they bring him back, and that's where he starts to worship Picard because they think like they brought him back from the dead, and he's also awake in like sick bay for a minute.
Yeah,
so they do this memory wipe thing that Pulaski did in the previous episode we talked about.
Yeah, Crusher's like, I'm familiar with Dr. Pulaski's method.
Yeah, so she's concerned about how effective it will be.
Which is not very effective.
Yeah.
Not at all.
This is where Picard's like, yeah, you should just let him die. But she's like, it's our fault, you know, so no. So he goes back. They're kind of going nuts, but they've got one of the people, do they not? They find... It's Palmer, isn't it? Palmer is the name of the scientist, which is kind of ironic, or not ironic, but a fun coincidence. So then that's kind of initially the issue in the episode is like, how do we extract him, and like, should we just go down and do it? We've already kind of like, now they're starting to, they talk about how they've been moving away from like their old like kind of like superstitions, they call them, but religion really.
Right.
And they've moved towards progress, scientific progress, and this might cause them to kind of collapse back into it. So that was kind of, it gets heightened as the episode goes, but kind of what did you think about this sort of tension, McKenna?
Yeah, Troy and Riker have to like go down all dressed up, disguised, and gaslight him into thinking it was all a dream.
That's an interesting dream you had.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. It's
like, and they don't fall for
condescending. It at all. Oh yeah, it's like, it's not a dream.
Yeah, they're like, what are you? Yeah, they're like, what the hell? Like they think it's like, it's also, they don't fall for it at all. They're like, it wasn't a dream. I don't know what to tell you. It was real.
Right? Or like, oh, where are you from again?
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah. But yeah, they try to get Palmer out without being noticed. They don't quite succeed with that.
They're like, over here.
Yeah. Troy gets left behind. So then it's just really tense because it's like,
now it's someone you know.
Yeah, like, okay, we can't just leave behind this person
Liko is like starting to heighten it more. He's like, maybe we need to sacrifice someone. So now like the death of one of our crew people are,
it does like it escalates
involved.
So quickly. He like Liko is like, yeah, and he's like, I think we angered the Picard and like there's like some sort of a storm, and he's like, our crops are gonna die, we have to sacrifice someone. I'm just like, whoa, that, and like for being this like proto-Vulcan, like really logical, I was like, you need your tribal leader back or whatever, who is like much more logical than this, who's like, I think you're just extrapolating here. You're spiraling, Liko, okay? Like, you don't have to kill this guy to, like, make the Picard happy. But that's what he wants to do.
He's reckoning with, like, he thinks he just was brought back to life and his wife is dead, and he thinks, he's thinking he is spiraling out of control. And we should talk about, I loved the character of Nuria, played by Catherine Lee Scott. Again, just someone who's in a bunch of stuff, or we don't have time to get into that. But she this is the only thing I know her from, but she was awesome in this. Like, definitely, it was cool to have like a kind of variety of people down there for them to kind of like have differing like ideas and reactions to things. You kind of had like the elder guy who had kind of some old knowledge of, what their old practices were, and then Nuria does feel like this more like progressive leader for them, so I kind of like that whole balance that they had.
Yeah.
They I liked that this actually also happens in the episode I mentioned, Justice, where they were trying to convince them not to kill Wesley. But Picard takes someone from the planet and brings them up to the ship. And those moments always kind of fuck me up in the episodes when he does that, because it feels like such a, like, I always try to imagine that situation, like being in that situation. It's such like an overwhelming feeling, what I mean?
when he takes Nuria up there. I mean, it also talking about, this kind of relates to what we were saying earlier about Picard being like this like leader that you just like really, that just is so effusive and has such confidence, and it's like, yeah, I can totally see how there's this moment at the beginning where she like Nuria bows down him, and he's like, no, don't bow down to me. Like, I am flesh and blood, just like you. And I'm like, okay, this is very Jesus coded. Like, you're not making it seem like you're not a god. Like you're giving too much confidence here. You got to act a little wonky to make her believe that you're immortal, because he just kind of gives like,
you're so right,
Picard like energy. And I was just like, no, you gotta like maybe tell her a joke or something, man. Like, it's not like, she's not gonna believe you, because you already seem so godlike and like so beautiful, and I know just
that
evokes confidence.
I totally get what you're saying, which is why I think it doesn't work initially.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't work.
That moment where he is like, feel the beat of my pulse or whatever, I'm always like, that gives me chills a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, imagine an alien doing that to you.
I know. And I love Picard. I was like, I want to feel his pulse. I want to hold his hand. Like,
oh yeah.
And not even in a slightly creepy way, I guess. But I just am like, it's like, man, he's the best. He's like, he just is so, like, he's so comforting. I don't know. I was like, he's digging himself into a hole here, because she's not going to believe it.
No, I like that before he goes to get her. Also, that I like that guy who's like, just give him a religion. You know what I mean? He's like, one of the scientists. He's just like, just tell him what to do. And that's one reason I loved it back in the day, because like I was all on my like atheist shit, and I love when they're just like, it is him reacting to them talking about like inquisitions and things like that. But I just remember where he's like, I will not impose a set of commandments on these people, and then he's like, and they mention all the things that it could cause, and Picard's always like, horrifying, and I always just think like, yeah, damn, that's so true, like that's so right, like,
yeah,
it would be a moral dilemma if you were like in the situation that's like, do you want to make all these people religious for any reason? Like, I would be like, that's terrifying. No.
Yeah, that's like the worst case. One of the worst, maybe not the worst, like war or whatever is probably worse, but like that seems like the worst case scenario for the Prime Directive. Like that's the worst thing that could happen, is that they all start to like they think that you're gods, and then they get it all twisted, and you just like totally fuck up their entire worldview and just like drop it and leave, you know? Like that's awful. This episode I was really like, this is like, they got to fix this, because this is bad.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one because then you're like, well, what do you do to fix this? So what did you think about McKenna, Picard bringing Nuria up and kind of talking to her and stuff?
I really liked when he actually figured out, like, oh, this is how I explain this, is like, oh, you know how you guys have this technology now, you know, your past selves would have thought that was crazy. Like,
oh, that's such a
it's
good
like magic until it's science, until you explain it, or it's impossible until you do it.
That's what, like, it was like, because you could see, again, to her character, you could see her understanding it, but then to like, I feel like this race of aliens they created, it makes you feel like proud of them, you know what I mean, that they could wrap their heads around this or whatnot, and that they don't reject it, you know.
Yeah,
that's such a great call for such a good scene, I think.
Yeah, great call out, McKenna. That part was awesome.
And then, I mean, it's just great writing all around, because then right after, then he's like, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, but he's like, now come see this person die, you know? And that's where she finally like solidifies it. We got a train going by. No big deal.
Beep, beep. Yeah, they like, I was thinking about it when, I think this is so stupid, but I remember when I read Harry Potter for the first time as like a kid, that that there's the pictures that like move, you know? And I remember thinking like, damn, that's so freaking crazy. Like that is literal magic, to think of photographs that like move a little bit. And now we just like quite literally have that all the time, you know?
GIFs.
Like we got GIFs, we got live photos on, you know, your iPhone and shit. Yeah. You got like just as a kid in like whatever 95 or something, I just was like, I can't even imagine like a video call. That's crazy. And like, look at us right now, you know? And so I just like, as he was explaining this, when he's like, yeah, it seems like magic or whatever until it's science. I don't know if he I'm now just repeating what McKenna said. I'm not sure that's what Picard, McKenna, you know, same kind of vibe. So
they're basically like, the same vibe. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that I was thinking about that. I was like, man, it is true. Like, even just in my short lifetime, you know, I've like seen some of that like I've felt that feeling.
And then Picard knows it's like the way we're gonna handle. I have to go down there myself, basically.
Yeah.
I thought this was such a. I don't. What do you think, McKenna? Like this final moment where it's like, I think he is like prepared to sacrifice his own life to save Troy, and I guess sort of do his best to not ruin this culture. So I think that says a lot about his character and his moral convictions. What did you think, McKenna?
He's very assertive when he goes. He's like, just kind of like, knock it off. Like, I don't want any of this. I don't deserve any of this because I'm not what you think I am. You just gotta stop.
And Liko won't even accept that at first, that was kind of a sad moment when he starts talking about his wife and everything. Like, you can see like it's so much of it is born out of like this fear or grief or whatever, you know, and it makes you just think about how much fear and grief probably motivates a lot of people.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Yeah, of course. And really good writing, like that they just at the, I mean, it's super simple or whatever, but at the very beginning when they're like out, you know, the first 2 minutes of the episode where he says like, oh, like your mom would have been so proud of you. And the way he says it, you just are like, that's going to come back. That's going to be important. And it's like such a simple thing that they just are like, bring back the dead. And then he like gives a knowing look to his daughter. You know, it's like so much of what he wants is to like believe that like death is not final, you know. And that's I think what a lot of people want.
Great ending to the episode for sure.
Yeah.
I always remember the shot when she touches his blood and looks back up at the camera like
yeah.
It's a goofy one, but yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I like their little chat at the end where he's like talking to them and like it's kind of encouraging, you know what I mean? Like that's part of like, I mean, we'll see it a little bit with First Contact too, a civilization that mirrors ours a little bit more, but you always get that feeling of like, it's like that hopeful side of Star Trek that almost feels like so far from reality these days, but like this idea of like, anyone could someday, any society could someday advance itself to where you're living in like a better world, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm stuck with at the end there. There's a bit of hopefulness, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there
and
is.
Honesty. I like that they just have to be honest with them and be like, look, we're doing our best, you know? Sorry.
Yeah.
This is what's real.
Yeah, that they're like you'll like get here eventually, and they have such a poetic way of describing it and explaining it, like, you know, you'll get better at this, and then the next generation will learn from that, and it just keeps going and going and going, and then someday you'll be in the stars or whatever. So it's just
Picard's like, of that I have no doubt. And
yeah,
you're like,
it gives me chills. I love it. I did have one thing to say, but it's actually probably should have brought it up at the last episode, but it reminded me of it when you were talking about hope, like feeling hopefulness, like the hopefulness of Star Trek and like the way that it's written that just like allows for there to be these kind of like, what's the term for it? Like, suspended disbelief or whatever. Not just about like, oh, they're people in the stars or whatever, but just, I was thinking about this when he was getting on the horse in the previous episode and how it's like the holodeck as a conceit is like the holodeck like is like generating this world that feels real, but it's computer generated or whatever. And you get to go in there and like just, you know, believe that it exists and experience it and whatever. And I had like a really like sort of depressing moment where I was just thinking about, we don't have to talk about it, but about like AI for a second. I was like, man, how is he not just thinking like, is this what a horse looks like? Is this really what a horse looks like? Is this how a horse really feels? Is this what they smell like? You know, whatever, because I feel like just us at this point in humanity, whatever, at this early stage of generative AI, which is like basically what the holodeck is like, sort of it's existing in that same narrative space where I just was like, man, like at the time that this was written, that Star Trek was written and all this, that like they had no idea what was coming and how like it was going to feel like such trash, and that like the holodeck could exist in this like pure state of just like, man, this can exist and it can be like beautiful and we can take it for granted. And I don't think we have that privilege anymore. So
well, that's something people forget about when they're talking about like this future bullshit we're gonna do, like Musk or whoever, because the thing that also comes along with Star Trek's future is like figuring out inequality and poverty and things like that. And the way those people think about it is we're gonna do that by creating AI and going to Mars or whatever, and not like, it's not like something that goes hand in hand. It's just like, oh, it's just gonna happen, you know? So fuck them.
So yeah, it's weird to watch these in retrospect, you know? You're like, wow, this is not what they this wouldn't be made exactly the same way. Maybe it would be, but it just is totally different to be like, I'm just like thinking about this horse now, and now I'm like, oh, they're not even outside. Is that what would they be stuck in the mire of like, is that what a tree looks like, you know? Anyway.
I mean, that's not something far from the conversation. Like people do talk about a lot with replicated things or the holodeck, like, oh, it's just not the same as the real thing, you know? So, I don't think you're off there. I don't think it's like necessarily a bummer to bring it up. But I definitely think if there's things like that, that what we have now is a yeah, it's only a pale representation of
Right.
what Star Trek is trying to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that's it's like hundreds of years from now, so they've got a lot of time to figure out stuff like that that's not weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they'll fix it.
But I don't think it's going to be with what they're fucking with now. That's for sure. We're never going to get data from Grok. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we're gonna get data. Data's too good for this world.
Even in
They
the
can't
world
even
of
make
TNG,
data,
data
Yeah.
is
unique. Like,
yeah. There's just it's like impossible. He can't even recreate himself. You know.
yeah.
All right. Well, Who Watches the Watchers? Great episode.
So sick.
Okay, let's go. So we've seen the alien invasion from the Starfleet side. Now let's take a twist and let's see Starfleet be the alien invaders in quite a unique episode. First Contact.
Stranded on an alien planet,
We have captured one of their spies.
a case of mistaken identity endangers Riker's life.
I have to get back on my ship.
And survival lies in the hands of the enemy.
Stop him! He's escaping!
Will you release my officer?
We're not giving him back.
I believe that Riker will not survive the day.
Starfleet Crisis on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Season 4, episode 15th from February 18th, 1991. Written by, I can't even talk about all these people, but Dennis Russell Bailey, David Bischoff, Joe Menosky, Ronald D. Moore, and Michael Pillar. Directed again by Cliff Bowl. This was just one that like went through so many different permutations and stuff over the years, and like an idea they developed over seasons. So that's just how that happened. Memory Alpha says, an injury to Commander Riker during a reconnaissance mission threatens the prospects for first contact with a culture on the verge of warp travel. So I thought this was a nice cap on everything. Actually, it worked out really well because I think it shows the opposite side of the first episode, kind of how Starfleet goes about making first contact with people. And we've seen different stages of evolution from different planets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to now see one that resembles ours, which is supposedly on the verge of, this reaching the stars and reaching the ability to make contact with other civilizations and stuff. So I think it just kind of was a nice cap in a lot of ways. This is one we've definitely seen, McKenna.
Uh-huh.
I think a favorite from TNG, or maybe at least a standout one, is it not?
Yeah.
Adriel, what'd you think?
It was, I think that of all of these, Who Watches the Watchers was my favorite, but also I think it was the NPCs from Link to the Past who really made it, and Picard as Jesus and angering the Picard, all of that. But this one was also, it was a great last one to watch, because all of these episodes are sort of showing the Prime Directive, or just like, contact with these with new places, and like how it can go pretty well and how it can go really, really poorly. The big standout in this one, I wish that this didn't stand out so much, is the alien that tries to sleep, or does successfully sleep, with Riker. That's really what stands out the most of this whole episode. Perhaps unfortunately, but it was a sick episode, and it had a great ending. This one had a really, really it made me feel good. It was a feel good ending.
So let's talk about that. We'll talk about starts off Riker got injured and he's stuck at this hospital, and we've got what I call the hospital gang, which is another multi-time Tony Award winner, George Hearn as Dr. Burrell. I don't really know who he is, but shout out, he's decorated. Steve Anderson as Nilram, and Sachi Parker as Tava, who are two of the people there. But then, there's a scene where he's trying to escape, and he's confronted by BB Newworth, who people may know. She was in Cheers and Frasier. She played Frasier's wife.
Oh, okay.
So the story behind this, so I'll just get this out of the way, is I think it was just like they were filming Cheers or something, and she was nearby. This is actually similar to what happened to Kelsey Grammer. And I think weirdly, Frasier and his wife have been on Star Trek, but they were just like, I think she might have been like, I can't remember the exact story, but it was sort of one of those like, hey, you want to come over and like film a scene or whatever? Nice. So they kind of just like threw this scene in for like some comedy.
Okay, interesting.
And look, it's weird, but she is very funny in the scene, so it kind of, for me, makes it work. Where she's like, I don't know what she says exactly, but she's like, I always wanted a fucking alien. Like, she's so gross about it.
Exactly
weirdly,
what she says. She's so nasty. It's really funny. She doesn't say that exactly, but he's like, Ma.
Yeah, like you think it's gonna be because she's hot, right? She's kind of hot,
sure.
And you think like, oh, this is gonna be sexy, but then she's like such a freak that you're like, it's like. Off-putting, you know what I mean?
Everyone's kind of like, yeah. Plus, they all like
you think it's just like, oh, Riker's getting some, you know?
Yeah,
but, yeah.
And they also just like are kind of nasty looking, and they draw attention to that when they realize that Riker is a human, and they like pull out his hands and feet, and they're like, oh God, he has fingers and toes, but their hands are like little skin gloves. It's really pretty nasty looking. So it just like adds
grossed out by humans.
Yeah, they're totally freaked out by our fingers.
You were gonna say something?
I was just thinking about I saw an episode, I think it was of Voyager somewhat recently, where one of the characters is involved with a species that they encounter, and I think he catches some kind of disease from it, and he kind of gets in trouble with the captain, because I think it's kind of maybe like first contact related. Like, maybe we shouldn't like have this kind of contact with a new species we're encountering before we know like how we could be affecting each other.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Look, it's definitely extremely out of pocket. Look, Riker had to do what he had to do. This definitely also happened in that Angel 1 reverse sexism episode. I always remember he goes down in like a slutty outfit, and he's like, look, I'm just doing my job, you know?
It's so funny. It's really good.
It's definitely, that's definitely something I feel like is off the tone of the show for real, but I think that's why I like Star Trek, is it will just have these moments or episodes even that are like out of left field.
Yeah.
And also the episode it definitely gets serious, and it definitely has stuff that is it's got the sort of social commentary in it, but it is a fun episode throughout, so it doesn't feel too out of place. But it's a little out of place for sure. It definitely stands out.
Yeah, well, like I think a lot of it is, it's just that there's like kind of a like, is there even a B plot in this episode at all? I don't think so, right?
So there's just two different kind of settings, but it's all sort of connected, you know?
Yeah.
There's so like the hospital and the politicians, you know?
Right. And so I think that because it felt like very streamlined, like a lot was like, it was just every scene was related like to progressing the story, and then granted the Riker scene was as well, but like that one just stood out as being like way goofier than the others, because a lot of it was this very serious like life or death, like what's going to happen to this society, and also what's going to happen to Riker. So this scene, it stood out to me.
It's goofy as fuck. Yeah, I did like the hospital crew overall. Like they all kind of had their different levels of like being comfortable with it, and like what they should reveal and say and stuff. So that was kind of cool. The doctor was sort of unsure.
He was like, we don't know what's going on, like what's up with this guy, what Riker's deal is, but I'm a doctor and like I have a duty to patch him up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The doctor shit. Once again, we love the doctors.
Yeah.
We need more shady doctors in Star Trek. Let's see some of that.
There was a part when Crusher, Dr. Crusher comes like beams down and she goes, "Don't be afraid. I'm a doctor." She says it in this way that's so good. I was like, hell yeah. Like I guess they don't have any questions at all. Don't be afraid. I'm a doctor.
The doctor's code,
Yeah.
I like this has it, and as does what's the other episode that has Who Watches the Watchers? Riker has to do in both episodes where they have to like bullshit about where they're from, and they're always like, "I'm from the southern continent." Yeah. I'm like, is that what people like say here? You know what I mean? Is like that how they? I think it's so we understand what he's saying, but
right.
And I guess there's like the universal translator, so like it could be said a different way in their like alien language. But I always love when they're like having a BS about where they're from, and they're like,
"Yeah,
have you seen my brooch?" Or like, or not brooch. He says something else.
I think pin. I think he says pin.
My pin. Brooch is the one I'm thinking of, McKenna. But or he's like,
my doctor's taking a sabbatical.
A sabbatical? Oh, yeah. Oh, you can't get a hold of my doctor. That's right. Oh, darn.
Yeah.
Oh, what's this? Oh, it's just a toy. It's a toy.
I thought you didn't have any family.
It's for a neighbor's child. And then you do start to think about it from the other perspective. You're like, man, maybe they are kind of like encroaching on his rights a little bit here. Like, give him a break,
Yeah. Although he is so clearly bullshitting them, like when they're like, "So your address doesn't show up. It's like a pizza place that's been closed for 3 years. You don't have any family, but you have this weird gun that like, it's just like all of this. You're like, what? And you got these weird genetic defects. Like they're not falling for it in the same way that the what were the Vulcan? They didn't fall for it. The Mintakans didn't fall for it. They're like, okay, no, it was not a dream. It was the Picard, So like these alien races they're not falling for it.
So speaking of, we can talk about the president and his like cabinet or whatever. You have or he's the chancellor, maybe. I can't remember. George Coe as Avel Durkin, centrist icon, I will say.
Terrible.
Here for sure. And he's got you've got two sides of he's like balancing the line between two of his advisors. One's his like, I guess his science advisor, Carolyn Seymour, who was in 3 episodes of TNG, 2 episodes of Voyager. She plays Marasta Yale. And you've got Michael Ensign, who has been in 1 episode of TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. As Krola, who's, I don't know, is he like his like defense dude? He's not scientific. We again see the same struggle of fundamentalism and progressivism, I guess, kind of battling each other on how they want to handle the situation. And I don't know. What do you think about the balance of these two people, Adriel?
Well, I think that the Chancellor, maybe just because he was like kind of an old, crusty white guy, he kind of reminded me of who's the evil Chancellor in Star Wars. Do you know what I'm talking about? He's crusty and nasty looking.
Oh,
the main
Palpatine?
Evil?
Yeah, Palpatine. Yeah, General Palpatine.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
He gave me Palpatine vibes, but just in like kind of how he just, because he was like a bureaucratic guy who I didn't trust, who was like in charge of all this shit that I was like, I don't know, man. I don't feel like you're going to necessarily make the right choice, but I think he did at the end. He did make a good choice at the end. But he keeps company with some like weirdos, like the fundamentalist guy. The science lady we love the science lady.
Yes,
and they're the one that they, she's the one that they first approach, like as members of the Federation or the Enterprise. They're like, hey, scientists tend to be less freaked out and be more open-minded to us. So that's why we're revealing ourselves to you first, which is cool. I mean, I think that was like, because I think that's like oftentimes true. It's a weird like in the same way that the last episode was a little bit like rubbing up against like religion versus like science kind of and logic, that it was like that's like scientists are often portrayed as being kind of closed and like, okay, well, it has to be logical, you know, whatever. And like it, like that doesn't exist, whatever. But like, I think Star Trek often kind of reverses that a little bit by like scientists also are way more open to the possibility of all of these things because they understand the vastness of, you know, the universe and potential and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool that like the sort of like, you know, like culturally conservative or whatever guy is so close-minded, and then this like scientist is really open-minded. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. He's kind of nasty, the conservative guy.
Yeah, he sucks. And he has weird glasses. He's got weird glasses that I don't like. They remind me of my ex-boyfriend. I don't like it.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it for sure. So, I mean, we do see it's like the different way, like we see kind of there's sort of like a fun like element to this episode where you get to see like the process of First Contact kind of play out. So I think that's fun from a Star Trek lore perspective. Like, it's maybe not, you don't see it go smoothly because that might be kind of boring, but, I don't know. What do you think, McKenna, about this whole struggle to win over the Chancellor and his situation?
Well, so I don't know if they normally, when they do First Contact, like inform them that they've been doing reconnaissance, that they've been studying them. Because it's kind of like it's something that you know, is often viewed as like a sign of pre-aggression. Like you go in and you spy to figure out a society's weaknesses so you can attack them. So, and they have to go in early to get Riker out. So they kind of have to tiptoe around it, present it in more of like this scientific matter, like, oh, this is like sort of a scientific study, not like we're spying on you.
Mm-hmm.
We're among you. You don't know that we're there. They have to make it sound less scary. And maybe, you know, I guess at first they conceal the fact that they're looking for Riker,
mm-hmm.
which was, I think, you know, ends up being a misstep because they figured that out and they're like, I don't know, if we can trust you based on this.
Yeah, it just makes the situation even worse.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they kind of have to navigate through that.
Mm-hmm. I like the one guy is so staunch or whatever in his beliefs that he's also willing to die just to like preserve, which just makes you think like, what are you even doing this for, man? You know, but
yeah. It was weird that he was like, I'm not weird, but I was sort of surprised when he's like, I'm willing to die to frame you to try to like make it so that you guys can never come here again. I was like, whoa, you like really go, like that's so extreme. Not even the dying part, but just like the like, I want you guys to never come back, and I'm willing for nobody to find out about it. I'm gonna make sure that like you know that it looks like
he's a true believer.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. But I mean about the spying thing, like I was with them when they were like, what the fuck? You guys have been here and like watching us, and also like we don't know what kind of weird diseases you have or whatever too. Like I would be very concerned if I was the new planet. I'd be like, this is whack, and I really you guys can go now. Like I would be freaked out about it too, so I get it. Not as much as the creepy guy with glasses, but you know, I would be wigged out.
I thought a little bit the Chancellor was like maybe too deferential to the conservative guy, but I'm projecting our current situation or something on now, but I was like, this guy, like I said, and again, this is made in the 90s, early 90s, so maybe a different view of that stuff as now, but I was like, this guy he's like a do-nothing centrist, He's like, at the end of the day, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah, I didn't like him. I did not like him, but I guess I appreciated the complexity of like, it's not just that it's first contact. It's that like, wait, but you've been here watching us for like a long time, and like, you're only telling us now because we found out about it. Like, it's pretty dishonest. It feels that way. Like, I could understand that. But he ends up like doing nothing about it either. So I was like, well, I didn't really like him.
if you found that out about society, especially if their society is actually similar to ours, like, I'm sure it's not portrayed, but like, it seems like I don't know, how do you have those things? And I'm sure they have like so much that could be helped by interacting with, another planet or whatever, so much to be gained from it. It's like, how could you find that out and just be like, no, and I'm gonna keep this a secret from everyone? And
yeah, like from everybody, it's like oh, you think you think you know best, I guess. Like, I mean, this had enough in it plot wise for it to be a movie. Like, there could have been like, to really enrich the plot, it would have been like that we would have had to see a lot of like world building of like, here are examples of like why we think that the society is like not ready for this, and like, even if they could like really benefit from it, but they're not ready, and blah blah blah. Like, there's lots of opportunities for expansion on this idea in just this particular like plot. But I don't know, I get it. Like, it's not a 1-to-1, but I was like, if someone was like, I don't know, like, again, like, surveillance is something that we like think about a little bit differently now than I guess then. Like, I don't know, the whole idea of surveillance does feel a little bit like that. It's like, well, I guess, do we not have like privacy or like the right to our own, shit? Or like, what else have you been watching if you're dishonest about one thing?
That's fair too. Yeah.
So like, I don't know. But that being said, I still didn't like the do nothing centrist guy either. I think that there could have been like a little bit of room for like the real, like, somebody who you could agree with, but also like that wanted them to leave, who wasn't such an asshole.
Yeah, maybe a better conclusion than just like, go away for now. Like, maybe maybe he's like, let's maybe work out some kind of like a plan for this for the future or something. But instead, it just feels like, I don't know, we'll be ready? ? Who knows? We're not going to try. And in fact, I will have to. This is meant to be like a happy ending type thing, but he's like, I'll probably have to punish her. So like, you should probably just take her. That also felt like, okay, like.
Yeah, because the scientist ends up going with them, which does feel happy for her, but it feels like she escaped or something. And like, they just are like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It felt a little bittersweet in some way.
I did like his interactions with like Picard and stuff. Like, their scenes together were good.
Yeah, totally.
They drink the wine together. A little bit of continuity.
They do drink the wine.
If you recall, Picard's brother gives him that bottle of wine, and he tells him, don't drink it alone. So I thought it was actually kind of a very nice touch to be like, let's pull this thing back out. Adds a little bit of a weight to that situation, like, that's you cool. Understand how important it is,
Yeah.
I also think that's kind of it being wine. That's kind of one of the first things that caused civilizations to advance, like beer and wine. People were staying in one place to grow crops, and these alcoholic beverages were safer to drink than water. So that's really where like the gears start turning to become a more technologically advanced society.
He even drinks it, and you're like, we got something like this here, you know, like,
yeah.
So you think like this could be something that connects people for sure. Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good point, McKenna. I like that.
It's a great, this is a great episode. For sure. I feel like it's felt like one of them. I mean, obviously we had like Best of Both Worlds kind of felt like a movie, but this felt like kind of a, you know, like you can picture it as the movie, like you said. Totally. It felt kind of like a blockbuster episode, you know. It just felt like great production, great acting, a cool, like a very unique situation, like it's something you'd see in a movie but flipped on its head, you know. Like we're the alien invaders was really cool. People are paranoid about like we know we can trust them, you know. Maybe that's why you're talking about like if they find out stuff about that surveillance, you're like, that is plenty of reason to be like, fuck them. But for me, I see it as less because I'm like, I know Picard. I trust Picard, you know?
Totally.
So it's like,
I trust the Picard.
I believe in him. Yeah.
I believe in the Picard. So I think it's going to be fine.
He could do a lot. He's a master of life and death. Yeah. So just an interesting, fun episode. I don't know anything else to say about this one.
This is kind of going all the way back to the beginning. I love the opening where they're just you see all the doctors and you don't recognize anyone, and they're all working on a patient, and then it finally like zooms in and you see that it's Riker in some alien makeup.
Yeah, they don't totally stick to this, but they did say they kind of intended for it to be from the point of view of whatever these aliens are called. And so I think, that definitely sells that. Yeah, you start in the moment and that's always cool. Yeah, I feel like that happens a couple times where like we get to react to like what the characters we know are doing, but they're foreign in the story. It's so fun. Great. That's a great point.
Yeah, and it was very like ER coded or whatever. Like
very like, ER.
I liked it a lot. That I was like, oh yeah, this is some great 90s television. You know, like they're like buzzing around the like operating room or whatever.
It's like stuff around
in their scrubs.
Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.
Why should I?
Well, you know why. I don't belong here. I have to get back on my ship. In space.
I believe you.
Now, will you help me?
If you make love to me.
What?
I've always wanted to make love with an alien.
Well, cool. I think this was a fantastic set of episodes. It was kind of a diversion, but I think it was worth it to do, to kind of. It's good because it comes up later in Star Trek. Like it's good to know what they believe, because they often like to play around with that and like test the boundaries and like test their beliefs and stuff. So these were kind of a great run of episodes to show a little bit of that, but also just kind of generally like how things work and stuff. So
I mean, I thought y'all did a great job with the curriculum today.
Thank you.
But also the Prime Directive is really interesting. I mean, it's called the Prime Directive. It's the number one thing is don't interfere with other societies. Don't do it if you don't have to, or if they don't know about you, which is just, it's interesting that that's the number one thing, not like protect all life or whatever, you know, it's don't interfere.
It's interesting.
that I thought it was cool. So it didn't feel like a departure. It felt like it really enriched my understanding of this whole thing.
There's definitely there's another layer to it that we could totally get into sometime about how it's like it's the number one directive like for like a organization that they're doing exploration but also colonization of space, and it's
the
sort
final
of one of those
frontier.
things, I think a lot of times what it comes down to is like, can you truly not interfere with?
Yeah.
And that's sort of an open question that remains in Star Trek. So
yeah, can you really leave no trace? Yeah.
Yeah.
They last question about this is this was the Prime Directive only started in the Next Generation, but it continues on in subsequent series as well.
No, there are episodes they like deal with it in the original series as well.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
Okay.
It's just more like in TNG, I feel like there a lot of things just become more like codified and like more like we want to explore this even further. But yeah, you can find I can suggest to you even some Prime Directive TOS episodes that are a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this has been
it does
since the very beginning. I gotcha.
It's core. It's definitely core to what this even now like it's core to like Star Trek and like the types of stories they like to do for sure. Okay, so that was a diversion because I actually wanted to do a set. This will play into it cool though, so this will be good. Our next set of episodes have a stronger connection, I think, overall, but I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't want to say too much, but it's there's definitely a decent amount of Romulan stuff going on for sure, a little bit of that. It's gonna be a 5 episode one just because I think it'll be
sweet.
We're gonna see some Romulan stuff, some and we'll actually ultimately see at the end a better example of like Starfleet and testing our ideals and things like that. So
nice.
They kind of are all disconnected, but they will all tie together, I think, in a fun way at the end. And it was nice. We set the table with like what was going on with Vulcans and Romulans last time and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see a little bit of that and some other stuff. Picard being tested by Starfleet. So it'll all confluence into a great series of episodes. So
awesome.
Thank you, Adrielle, for coming along on the journey.
Thank you both very much for having me. It's always so fun to do these Trek logs. I love them so much. I feel like I'm starting to like learn and have an appreciation and be able to like talk to people about Star Trek, and it's just super fun. So
cool.
Thank you again. Been a pleasure.
Just another dorky thing to add to your your Swiss Army knife of pop culture.
As if it wasn't bad enough.
McKenna, great job.
Thanks. You too.
We did great. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. You can find more of our stuff at flashback64.com. You can find some of the other shows on the SoundStone podcast network, like Pixels and Polygons and Kirby Conversations. That's at SoundStone.network. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
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 Live long and prosper.
The ZeldaCast is getting even bigger. Join us on patreon.com/SPNet for access to the ZeldaCast XL, the new bonus show featuring podcasting's dynamic duo, Andy Spiteri and Gooey Fame.
We're taking a new approach to do our bonus shows and giving you more of what you love, letting you get more involved in the show itself. Each month, We'll have some fun and play a few games, answer some Patreon questions, and discuss some Zelda topics on a more personal level.
Consider joining for only $4 a month, and you can ask us questions about Zelda or anything else on your mind. Let us know what topics and segments you want us to discuss, and be a part of an amazing community of Zelda fans hosted by two best friends.
The ZeldaCast XL is taking everything you love about the show and ramping it up even more. So come and hang out with us, only on patreon.com/spnet.